From 2007 to 2010, Cartoon Network gave their audiences a heaping helping of chowder. This TV dinner was the fave dish for an audience of chowderheads who loved the show's use of multimedia like stop motion and puppets, as well as crazy visual design, over-the-top references, and fourth-wall breaks, not to mention the flavorful cast of characters. Hey guys, I'm Justin with Channel Frederator, and we've got all the ingredients to make some chowder. So break out your aprons and comedically tall chef's hats, as we're here for 107 facts about chowder. Let's get cooking. Chowder is an animated series created by C.H. Greenblatt. That's a dash of comedy, a pinch of fantasy, and a smidgen of a cooking show. Yes, those are all legit cooking measurements. Before he created Chowder, C.H. Greenblatt worked as a writer on both The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and SpongeBob SquarePants. Greenblatt actually provided voices for both of those shows. On the SpongeBob episode Selling Out, he played Carl, who he actually shares a name with. The CH stands for Carl Harvey. And on Billy and Mandy, he played Fred Burger, who sadly he doesn't share a name with. The original concept for Chowder was inspired by the master-apprentice relationship in movies like The Sorcerer's Apprentice and The Sword and the Stone. The cooking element came about when Greenblatt wanted to depict the relationship without using real magic, and instead he used the magic of food. Another reason that cooking became the basis of the show was accessibility. Everyone eats. Not only that, but everyone has their own tastes, yet are united across cultural lines by eating. So really, Chowder is a humanities study. Chef Jr. was a Greenblatt recreated precursor to Chowder, created for Chef Boyardee during Greenblatt's time in advertising. Chef Jr. and his dog Rigatoni were featured in about 3 commercials, wreaking all kinds of food-related havoc. Little did Greenblatt know that those 3 commercials would turn into a TV show. Before greenlighting the show, the execs over at Cartoon Network had 2 main concerns. The first was that the show looked like it would draw in too young of a demographic, which, spoiler alert, Chowder never really escaped from. The second was that they thought it would be a formulaic recipe of the week show rather than having the character-focused shenanigans that are truly at the center of it. The show draws influence from classic Saturday morning shows and other goofy, vibrant works, like The Muppet Show and Dr. Seuss books. Greenblatt wanted to create a magical, colorful world which is enthralling for young viewers. Greenblatt drew influence from the Big Apple itself when creating Chowder's setting, Marzipan City. He wanted to capture the feeling of an endless urban jungle that could literally go from urban to jungle in just the turn of a block. The look of the city, though, had more foreign taste. The team referenced Moroccan and Indian architecture in its design, 2 places that are also well known for their cuisine. That's not the only part of the show to be influenced by Indian culture, but we'll come back to that later. Greenblatt designed all the characters to be intermediate species or hybrids as part of the world. Marzipan City is a melting pot for cartoon weirdness, so everyone there had to bring a little bit of it to the table. Children's book author Richard Scarry was also a key influence for Greenblatt. His books from back in the day featured tons of different animals living together harmoniously, kind of like Zootopia. Greenblatt liked the idea of diversity in animation, so he decided all residents in Marzipan would look unique. All the cool cartoons these days have a little title sequence gag, and Chowder was no exception. Every episode there was a different meal in the oven. It's hard to miss, it's in the foreground for the full intro. Greenblatt insisted that the show contained stop motion and puppets despite the network's fears that it would come off too childish. To him, the multitude of media would remind viewers that animation comes in more forms than just traditional 2D. Maybe there's a cooking metaphor in there too, like a good meal being about more than just bread and cheese. That ended up being the reason that the puppets stopped appearing in the credit sequences. Sadly, the network chose the no-taste route in the end. Chowder's stop-motion sequences were created by Screen Novelties. The company has some great animations for all your favorite tunes, like SpongeBob and Adventure Time, as well as for some big corporations. Never stop the motion, guys. When it came to the stop-motion transitions, Screen Novelties was usually winging it. They normally would just create a bunch of options and let the main development team pick which ones fit the episode. Chowder almost was a part actual cooking show. Originally, the puppets were going to demonstrate simple recipes that kids could make at home. The idea ended up being scrapped. Aw man. Sadly, of all the puppets and stop-motion pieces used on the show, Greenblatt didn't get to keep any of them, except for the puppet of himself. Well, that's a perfect ventriloquist dummy. He already has the voice. What's the C.H. Greenblatt method of character design? Actually, it's just doodling. Doodling over and over until you're onto something, and then refining that idea. Wait, does that mean I spent math class designing my TV show? Where are my animators at? The downsides with the doodle tactic? Sometimes doodles are funnier than refined pieces of art. Greenblatt has lamented that some of his characters looked much funnier back when they were just mindless sketches, because their oddness is so authentic. Eventually, the mean old wizard became a mean old chef, and that shy kid became, well, now he wears pants on his head. Greenblatt's main goal for Chowder's design was for him to feel like a stuffed animal, like the kind you can squeeze in the way you shouldn't squeeze a real animal. Chowder is named after this food, called chowder. Actually, all the characters are named after food. After designing a character, Greenblatt would make a list of possible foods they could be named after, and then pick the best fit. Most of us just call that a grocery list. Even professional animators are always improving. When Greenblatt looked back on Chowder's Season 1 design, he noticed that it was at odds with itself. His features are all condensed and squished up to drive home his oversized body, yet his head and body are completely in proportion. As the show progressed, Greenblatt refined Chowder's design in some subtle but big ways. The most noticeable, Chowder's growing head. Greenblatt not only made his head large, but also added more weight into his cheeks to make him visually chubbier. The official official name of Chowder species from C.H. Greenblatt himself is a cat, bear, rabbit thingy. Yep, that checks out. The voice of Chowder is Nicky Jones. He also played Flower in Bambi 2. He also reprised his role in Cartoon Network's Fusion Fall. These days, though, we doubt he can get his voice that high anymore. Chowder's squeaky days are behind him. Dwight Schultz plays Mung Dahl. You may recognize his voice from a variety of animated roles like Dr. Nemo in Ben 10, but you'd probably recognize his face as Howlin' Mad Murdock from the original A-Team. During the casting process, Greenblatt described Mung Dahl as the love child of Don Knotts and Yoda, i.e. an old fellow with true wisdom and worldliness, but also a total nutcase. Mung Dahl is named after a spicy Indian stew made with, surprise surprise, a mung bean. At one point, the plan was for Mung Dahl to actually have an Indian accent, but that idea was dropped pretty early on. Yeah, something tells me it was for the best. Before the student became the master, Mung Dahl was once an apprentice too. His cooking master was Lo Mein, an old Chinese-sounding man voiced by James Hong. So I guess that makes him Chowder's Grand Master and Scraps' great-grand cooking master? Mung Dahl has been a chef for over 380 years. Think of how many recipes that's gotta be. Meanwhile, I barely can manage to cook dinner for myself every night. We can't all be master chefs. Mung Dahl's lovely wife Truffles is played by Tara Strong, but Greenblatt actually had Valor from The Princess Bride in mind while casting her. Truffles is based off of Greenblatt's mom. She too is a tiny, loud woman. However, she doesn't have the accent, and I wager she doesn't have the wings either. Truffles' explosive mahjong personality is based on Greenblatt's mom too. When young CH was growing up, Mama Greenblatt would have friends over to play the game. Even though those crazy high rollers bet mainly with dollars and cents, they were always screaming curses at each other the whole night, hence the Mahjongosaur was born. Truffles and Mung Dahl have been married for 450 years. Sorry guys, Cosmo and Wanda still have you beat. Just wait till you get to the false anger anniversary. Truffles is lactose intolerant and has fibromyalgia. No wonder she's such a Sour Patch Kid. She's in constant pain and can't even eat ice cream to feel better about it. Mung's employee, Schnitzel, is named after a fried, breaded, meaty dish. He isn't a hybrid creature like some of the other characters. He's straight up a rock monster. Greenblatt likes to think of him as one of the Menhir Stones from the Asterix comics, but come to life, and seemingly a little grumpy about it. The voice of Schnitzel was done by voice acting superstar John DiMaggio. Casting the role was just as insane as you'd think. Greenblatt listened to person after person come in and just say "rada rada" repeatedly, and then he had to choose which person said it the best way. See also Pikachu and Groot casting tapes. DiMaggio wasn't originally cast in the role though. In the pilot, Kevin Michael Richardson played that part. Once the show went to series, Richardson had to drop out, so DiMaggio swooped in to save the day, cause who's too busy to come in and just say "rada rada" a whole bunch. Schnitzel briefly speaks English in The Trouble with Truffles. He calms down enough to talk with words, like a person, before falling over and reverting back to radas. But those two English sentences, magical. So is there a Mrs. Schnitzel? Turns out there actually was at one point, but she didn't make it onto the show. I mean, Greenblatt originally imagined that Schnitzel had a wife that would never be seen until he realized that a single Schnitzel is more fun and rewrote his headcanon, which I guess is the official canon since he made the show after all. In a past life, Schnitzel was a tiki monster named Tapio Kaka. No joke, Greenblatt first drew him in the 90s to test out Adobe Illustrator and made him a cool, fiery tiki look and everything. The character went nowhere at the time, so Greenblatt decided to repurpose him for Chowder. The lines all over Schnitzel's pattern are scratches from years of physical abuse. In the pilot, they were swirlier, which Greenblatt said made them look like hair. So one hilarious inside joke is "rada rada." Turns out they just went with it because it sounds funny. Not everything has a great behind the scenes story, people. In the Sing Beans, Schnitzel tells a very dirty joke, but we don't actually get to understand it because, well, the radas. According to a pop-up in the Chowder Grows Up marathon, though the joke involves a small bucket of fish and fishermen. We'll let you Google the answer there. Miss Endive is voiced by Mindy Sterling, who is best known for her role as Frau in the Austin Powers movies, but around these parts we love her as Lin by Fung in Legend of Korra. Endive's namesake food is a bitter vegetable that's considered fancy in some parts of the world. Greenblatt thought this was the perfect characterization for his snooty pastry chef and used the name. Greenblatt credits writer William Rise with expanding and evolving Endive throughout the course of the show. He worked on the story and storyboard for most episodes, making his positive influence a key to her character. There was a popular fan theory that Mung was Endive's ex-fiancé who left her at the altar, thus causing her deeply rooted hatefulness. At WonderCon 2008, C.H. Greenblatt shot down the theory, so if you catch hints of that in your Chowder rewatch binge, it's not so. No cartoon conspiracy there. Endive went through some design changes early on, but one feature remained the same, her long nose. That's how the designers represented her looking down on everyone. See, she's literally snooty. The voice of Panini was done by Liliana Mumi. Mumi also plays Lenny on The Loud House and Beth Tezuka, right here on Cartoon Hangover's own Bravest Warriors. Panini's name used to be Borlodi. That's a kind of a bean. FYI, that name went right along with her earlier character design, a pointier, meaner look that made her seem like Angelica from Rugrats. When Greenblatt smoothed out her design, he also gave her a nicer and tastier name. Greenblatt made a point to cast real kids like Nicky Jones and Liliana Mumi to play the kids on the show, comparing it to the voices in Peanuts. There's something warm and genuine about about it that you just don't get with an adult doing a high-pitched voice. Chowder's arch-rival, Gorgonzola, is named after the chunky Italian blue cheese. He earned that name thanks to Greenblatt's hatred of all things blue cheese, so it was a fitting name for the lead rival of his main character. The voice of Gorgonzola was done by Will Shadley, another child actor, who is actually 3 years younger than Nicky Jones. He also got to do voices in Kung Fu Panda and Cloudy the Chance of Meatballs, and I'm sure he'll be in plenty more going forward. The stop-motion monster Kiwi was an homage to a sketch comedy show, Laugh In. It was the show's way of cutting to something and someone completely different. Greenblatt lended not only his heart, soul, and mind to Chowder, but also his voice. He played both Kimchi and Kiwi. Kimchi almost couldn't be named Kimchi. Greenblatt said that many of the food names they came up with were shut down for legal reasons, and that list also included Kimchi. Kimchi's name was changed in the Japanese version, presumably because kimchi is a Korean dish. They called him natto, a strongly odored bean dish from Japan, still very fitting. The Thrice Cream Man ran into a similar trademark issue as Kimchi. He was originally called the Twice Cream Man, and they recorded half the episode using that name before they were told they weren't allowed to. Eesh, is everything copywritten? Mr. Fugu was played by veteran voice actor Bob Jules, and named after a dish from pufferfish. Pufferfish are nature's balloon after all. Mr. Fugu's Maneki Neko friend Foie Gras was voiced by none other than George Takei. Yes, Chowder hired Sulu and just made him say meow a bunch of times, and it was wonderful. Foie Gras' name means fat liver and is a delicacy in some parts of the world, but it's made with duck or goose liver, definitely not cat liver, so Foie Gras might just be a little confused about who he is. Dana Snyder was the voice of Mama's boy mammoth Gazpacho. Snyder is big on the Adult Swim scene, with characters in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, and Squidbillies. The character Arbor, you know, the one who's a tree, was voiced by Ron Perlman. This was awesome to watch, but even more awesome for Nicky Jones, who freaked out about getting to record with Hellboy. The customer from the pilot of Chowder was inspired by a hat. Greenblatt was looking at a book of clothing from around the world, which presumably he keeps on his coffee table, and found a hat that looked like a lunch bag, and added it to the show. Sometimes the characters that Greenblatt designs don't make it into the show. Here's a particularly great one, the Harshmallow. Get it? He comes off rude, but he's just saying what we're all afraid to say. Another scrapped character, Pekanehe, the leader of a gang of beach bum rats called the Pirates. He was named after a kind of Brazilian barbecue and based off Matthew McConaughey. In fact, had he made it into the show, McConaughey may have even voiced him. One of Chowder's standout elements is its use of patterns to color in parts of its characters. This look was used to distinguish the show from Cartoon Network's other flatter shows, and gives it a little sense of clutter and tactile feel. You just want to reach out and touch it. Chowder isn't the first show to use the pattern technique. When the naysayers told Greenblatt it would be distracting, he directed them toward Gonkutsuo, which uses way more vibrant textures. Upon being reminded of Gonkutsuo's unique art style in a magazine, Greenblatt knew that the look could be implemented successfully. Speaking of those patterns, they came from a few different places. Greenblatt drew up a few of them, while others were stock designs from books of fabric designs. See now, that's called being resourceful. So how do they pull off this pattern look? Well, first of all, they have full screen images of each pattern that characters can move in front of. Then, they literally cut out digital holes inside of the characters where they want the pattern to come through, and just animate on top of it, and voila, you've got yourself some instant color. If there's one thing the show loves more than food, it's breaking the fourth wall. It does enough to make Deadpool self-conscious. Here's some of the best times they smashed it down. Like in Brain Grub, when Chowder becomes so grubbed up on brain that he realizes they're inside of a cartoon and transforms it into an educational program. In Schnitzel Quits, Panini wonders what Chowder's favorite cartoon is, before determining it that it must be Chowder, as in the literal cartoon that she's literally on. Oh, and later that same episode, a puppet version of C.H. Greenblatt appears on a cloud, probably because he's basically God there, and tells Schnitzel to unquit. Well, he does know best. Pause your DVR or streaming website and a little bit of pizzazz when they show the fine print of the Get Back to Normal recipe book. It's actually the manuscript for the episode itself. The biggest fourth wall break of all is in the shopping spree. When Chowder and the gang run out of money, they use their animation budget, causing the real voice actors, Nicky Jones, Tara Strong, John DiMaggio, and Dwight Schultz, to hit the streets and earn a few bucks back, the only way a broke voice actor can at the car wash. There was almost a 1-hour Chowder movie special. In it, Chowder would have found a map to Gravy Jones's Lost Gravy recipe and ventured to Pie Land to find it. The special would have included a Chowder Panini kissing scene. Ultimately, the script was shelved because the schedule was too tight to squeeze it out. No! The series finale, Chowder Grows Up, features a time skip that shows us the fates of most of the characters. Greenblatt gave a little insight into that. Ceviche goes on to become a dance schoolmaster and marries Marmalade, though he still has some feelings deep down for Panini. His dance apprentice, Tartar, is mute and communicates with the art of dance. Hey, as I said, his headcanon is law. The time skip in the finale is something Greenblatt had always wanted to do. It was his plan to show Chowder as a master chef taking on his own apprentice like in Dragon Ball Z, but we're guessing with a little bit less punching and a little bit more yelling. Greenblatt provided the voice for grown-up Chowder in the final episode. You know, after his voice cracks, it's nice to see the creator and creation coming together as one last time. According to Greenblatt, the show was canned because it didn't fit with Cartoon Network's older boy demographic. The series ultimately had 3 seasons, totaling 49 episodes. It ran from November 2007 until August 2010. Have you seen every episode of Chowder but still need a fix? Well, Cartoon Network's got a bunch of Chowder-themed games on their site, the most popular being Book and Cook, which has been played over 70 million times. Chowder is a playable character in Cartoon Network's Punch Time Explosion and Punch Time Explosion XL. So if you've ever dreamed of being a virtual cat, bear, rabbit thingy and beating up cartoon characters, well, your dreams have come true, my friend. Chowder is an Emmy-winning TV show. Joe Bengali, a background painter on the show, won Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation in 2009. Good painting, Joe. The show was also nominated for another Emmy, twice, Outstanding Short Format Animated Program in 2008 and again in 2010. You always be outstanding in our book, Chowder. In addition, Chowder was also nominated for 2 Annie Awards in 2008, Best Animated Television Production for Children and Best Writing in an Animated Television Production. Has 7 years of no new Chowder left a big gaping hole in your heart and stomach? Well, then you could always check out C.H. Greenblatt's follow-up shows, Harvey Beaks and Fish Hooks. Both of those shows are over now too, so maybe we're just setting you up for disappointment, but they're worth a watch if you're craving some new cartoons. We've got 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 references to the Powerpuff Girls in Chowder. First, in Toot and Fruit Chowder, animal versions of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup can be seen in the crowd during Chowder's show. Powerpuff Girls, more like Power Pig, Cat, Bird Girls. In The Heist, Mungdoll's head actually turns into Bubbles' head, and she exclaims, "Wow, that's sweet." Bubbles was voiced by Tara Strong, so they already had her on hand to reprise her iconic role. Lastly, Miss Bellum just up and appears on the show, not as an animal or anything. Sergeant Hoagie thinks that he has a blind date with her, which, let's be honest, of course he doesn't. The Mario Bros themselves, Mario and Luigi, pop up in a Chowder episode. In Chowder and Mr. Fugu, there are 2 salesmen in suspicious familiar red and green garb. Oh, and their clothing is a brick pattern. Now that's clever. Chowder actually pays homage to their rival Bowser as well. In Sniffleball, we see the characters go 8-bit, and Chowder's rival Gorgonzola takes on the Bowser's villainous form. Then, in Big Ball, a Bowser-like turtle monster appears that punishes anyone who doesn't listen to the rules. Sounds like my dad. The episode Grubblegum is known by Chowderheads as the Katamari Damacy 1. For anyone not familiar, Katamari Damacy is a video game where a tiny little prince rolls a ball around and things of increasing size stick to it. Yes, it's just as much of an acid trip as it sounds. The giant gumball in Grubblegum not only directly mirrors this premise, but even plays a music track similar to the game's electric sound. Oh, and if somehow you're not convinced that Greenblatt is a Katamari Damacy fan, just look at the King of the Sky. Greenblatt wanted to turn the weather into a character, but weirder than the typical cloud design, he was inspired by the King of All Cosmos, the prince's dad from that game. And let's keep the video game references rolling. In My Big Fat Stinky Wedding, when Chowder is denied entrance to Kimchi's special day, he freaks about how he was promised cake and now the cake is a lie, which is a reference to the game Portal, if you weren't on the internet at all during those years. And if you didn't notice, the title of that episode is also a reference. My Big Fat Stinky Wedding is a throw to the hit movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, released in 2002. There's a cameo from Chowder on Harvey Beaks. In the episode Fee and Foo's Birthday, the pudgy little apprentice can be seen in the crowd. You can tell right away by the pants on his head. The music on the show was composed by Zach Pike and Dan Bower. They gave the show a sort of 60s groovy funk sound that complemented the surreal visuals, which Greenblatt compares to the band The Meters. Pike and Bower have a laundry list of other credits to their names besides Chowder, including 2 bands, the Sand Dollar Sound and the Upbeat, so if you're a fan of the tracks on Chowder, show them a little love too. The Chowder production team loved fan art. In fact, they loved it so much that they used to print it out and hang it up all around the office. C.H. Greenblatt has shared Chowder's secret recipe, the psychedelic clothing patterns. Yeah, he actually posted them online, so now you too have the ingredients to create masterclass fan art. In honor of Chowder, the Cartoon Network internal premiums team made a bunch of Chowder hats for their employees. Sadly, they were never available to buy for the public, though we totally would. I'd totally wear pants on my head too. Tragically, there aren't any plans for a Chowder cookbook. However, Greenblatt has said that the key to making one in the spirit of the show would be to make all the recipes fun, both to cook and eat. That way, you can have your Chowder and eat it too. Okay, that's enough with the food puns. I apologize. In 2007, Chowder was Cartoon Network's most watched original new show. That's a pretty big deal. It's been hinted at that Schnitzel swears a lot. In the episode Schnitzel Quits, Schnitzel's swear jar is completely full of money. He also gets scolded by Chowder in Kid Schnitzel, when Chowder says to him, "No need for harsh language. This is a kid's show. Sheesh." Have you ever noticed that Panini resembles another super cool cartoon character? Many have said that she looks similar to Aeneas Watson from The Amazing World of Gumball. Well, mockery is the best form of flattery. Once again, I'm Justin from Stuff with Scoutfly, and thanks for watching 107 Facts About Chowder. Which episode is your favorite? Who has the best food name? Comment down below and let us know. And don't forget to click that bell icon to become part of that awesome notification squad. We have new episodes dropping every day, so make sure to subscribe. You can check down in the description for more things from me on my personal channel, and don't forget, Frederator loves you.